You're all welcome. This session's all about your placement. So today we're going to look at quickly how you can find your placement. I know some of you haven't found placements yet. Talking about the workflow, we'll be talking about your written assessment for this part of your placement, and we'll be looking at placement expectations. All right, so in terms of finding a placement, I've done a separate guide on this, but very, very quickly, think about family, friends, think about any local schools to you. Try and make life a bit easier. Appreciate that schools are really busy at the moment. Obviously, we're coming into a really busy period for schools. If you've sent one email and you haven't had a reply, it's probably quite common. I would suggest you go into the setting. I would suggest you go and speak to the head teacher. I've talked to you about the power of chocolate. Go and take some chocolates in. That's going to go a long way. You've got to think about a number of institutions are asking for students, and not all schools can accommodate, so you're probably going to have to try a few schools. You're going to learn a lot through this process, so this is part of the placement. Going to find a placement, you're going to learn a lot, and it'll definitely help you when you start to look for jobs. Okay, if you are stuck with that, meet with the careers, go on to MetHub, book with Mel. You can see her calendar. She's a great help. If you're really stuck, let me know. Let the placements team know. But the main way we're going to find this out is on the workflow. So please fill out the workflow even if you haven't finished. So just start to populate the first few stages so we can see who's got a placement and who hasn't. The placement is something that we do university-wide, so any course that has a placement will fill out this workflow. So this workflow has a number of stages that you'll need to fill out and you'll have to complete. That's why we're urging people to get a placement as soon as possible, because the workflow can take a bit of time to get approved. You can't go on placement until it's approved by our placements team. So please don't do this the week before your placement starts, because it could take a few weeks to get everything signed off. So please, can you do this as soon as you can? Fill this out if you haven't already. Please make sure that the workflow placement documents are full out. This is all on PES 5007 on the placement page. You'll find the link. I've sent you numerous emails about this as well. So just start to fill out the workflow. So the placement process goes through this workflow is to make sure that you guys are safe. We know where you're going. We know that the institutions or the schools you're going into are safe as well. So you have to go through this rigorous process. You're representing the university. This has to happen. Okay, so before you start, there's a risk assessment which you need to complete. There's guidance of how you can do that, and that's really good experience, again, for when you start to look for work yourself. And when you become a teacher, you'll have to constantly do risk assessments. It's not hard to do. Most schools, all schools will have a risk assessment, so it'd just be you uploading some information, which is not hard. And also, you'll have to complete your Preparing for Placement e-module. Really simple, but it's actually really useful, and it gets you to start to think about your placement, and you start to think about what you can do on placement as well. This is really important. All right, the whole point of this placement is to get you to be reflective. This is an observational placement, so we want you to be reflective. This whole module, we're going to try and get you to reflect. This is a really important skill as you become a teacher. As it says here, teaching is a complex and hugely skilled activity, which above all requires classroom teachers to exercise judgment in deciding how to act. So you've got to think about, as a teacher, what have you done? How has this impacted the learning? And what will you do next? So you'll have to develop this reflective process, which is really, really important. So on placement, you'll need to develop skills and enable you to analyse and reflect upon not just your practice, but the practice of others. You need to do this in a systematic way. So hopefully on this module, we'll show you how you can do that. And, becoming reflective is something that does take a lot of skill, and it actually is quite a hard thing to do. So hopefully in this module and next year, we can help you with that reflection. So reflection starts with a series of questioning thoughts. Okay, so you need to reflect upon the performance of the teacher, but also as the children are learning. Now, your job is not just to go in there and say, that's a good teacher, that's a bad teacher. It's all very well for you to sit on the side and to judge that, But, teachers are working in really, really challenging circumstances at the best of times, let alone during a pandemic. So your job is not to just sit there and to judge and to think that you could do a better job. You don't know the context potentially of, they might have been ill, potentially they might have been, have things going on at home. So your role is not to judge them as a good or bad teacher. Your role is to observe and to think about the different strategies, the different activities that are being used, and to look at the children's learning. So ideally, you're going to be thinking about and considering, well, what did the children do? What were the activities? What did they learn? To what extent did children meet the learning objective? To what extent did children maintain interest and effort? Were there any misconceptions? Were there any barriers to learning? So all those things, you can keep a notepad, you can write things down. If you want to use an iPad, you want to use a laptop, that's fine, but I would check with the class teacher or the head teacher because some electronic devices aren't permitted. All right, now I've done loads of videos for this on the placement page. They're all quite short. There's guidance if you're stuck with the workflow. Alex from our placements team, he's put together a workflow video, which is really helpful if you're stuck with a workflow. I've interviewed a head teacher. This is really useful, and she goes through the expectations of students when they're on observational placement. That is really useful. She's given some really honest feedback to you guys. Watch it before you go out. Really, really helpful, I think, before you go out to watch those. All right. So your written assessment, you have got your blog for Aeoli too. Do an on Spark post. So you'll do those blog posts, but this will come as your last blog post. So you do a reflective blog post right at the end. So this is your written assignment linked to your placement. So this is 1,000 words. It's called Writ 1, and it's a written reflection on your placement. So this will require you guys to draw upon your experience, to explore practical examples that you've seen on placement of cross-curricular and creative approaches to learning. Again, that's what this module is about. So think about, any examples of cross-curricular learning, jot them down. If you can take pictures, ask the class teacher. If you can take videos, ask the class teacher. Ask the class teacher if it can be used in your blog. Again, safeguarding, you may not be able to video some children. You might not be able to take pictures of some children. I'm sure the class teacher won't mind you taking some pictures of work, but ask before. All right, so this is 1,000 words equivalent. So if you're bringing in pictures, if you're bringing in videos, that's great. Obviously, you need to support work with academic sources and ideas from the curriculum and quotes from the curriculum. I'll show you those in a moment. Okay. Ensure you clearly title this section in your blog. That's really important. This will be the last blog post. And again, you'll include references, so put them at the bottom. All right, this is the marking criteria. This is on the assessment pages. You all squint and try and read what that says. This is on the module. You can look at this in your own time. But basically, we're using the Briggs reflective cycle as you've all been introduced to in Aeoli 1, if you think back to that. So this will help with your reflection. You'll be doing it for a second time, so you'll know the cycle now. And as you can see, you're getting, as the cycle moves down, you get more and more marks. We'll go into these sections now. Okay. So we're using the Gibbs' reflective cycle. Again, teachers use this within their evaluations of lessons. So there's the description, there's feeling, there's evaluation, there's analysis, there's conclusion, and there's the action plan. So you're going to use this throughout your blog. Use it as subheadings. So the first thing would be description. So you're going to describe what certain things were. If you can think of any cross-curricular learning. This part is not to be analytical. It's to describe potentially the school, to describe the environment, some context to the school. Is it a rural school? Is it an inner city school? So you're going to describe the placement, details of the school, location, how many on roll, class, children, year group, that sort of thing. Then we're going to talk about feelings. So answering the following questions, these will help to structure. So how did you feel at the start? How did you feel at the end? What did you feel and what did you think during the experience? How did you react during the experience? You could talk about a specific example. How did you feel and what you did after the experience? this part is not analytical. So here, the description, the feelings, you don't get loads of marks for this, but it just provides a nice context to the blog. All right, so we come to the next stage, which is evaluation. This is where you're getting more marks now. So you need to identify an example of a cross-curricular or creative approach to learning observed on placement. So it might be a project, it might be, for example, one school could be making a computer game as a project, and you could reflect on that in your time that you've been there. What went well during this lesson? Were the children engaged? Were they completed? You could talk about one lesson, you could talk about a series of lessons, you could talk about the project. I don't mind. What during the experience could be improved? So again, think about any misconceptions from the children. Did everyone understand? Was there behaviour issues, for example? Again, this part is not analytical. It makes positive or negative judgments about an experience. It's a lot of things that happen during the experience. Focus on one or two. This is really important. So you'll probably see a range of cross-curricular and creative approaches, but try and pick one or two and focus on these here. Okay. The analysis. So this is where you get the bulk of your marks. So you need to analyse what's actually happened. So reconsider the things that happened in the lesson. How could they be improved? What things went well? What things could be improved? What are the benefits? What are the challenges? How do they link to the curriculum? So why did the teacher do this? How does it link to the curriculum? Does it link to the DCF? Does it link to the LNF? Does it link to the what matter statements? Does it link to the four purposes? And again, you could speak to your class teacher and they could give you some context. You could ask them and say, why have you included this? And when they say, and they might even show you the page number on the curriculum, or they might send you the link, put that in here. So this part is analytical. It doesn't describe, you've done that before. It tries to explain the causes and consequences of what's happened. And it asks things like why, what, when, what if. Look to bring in theory here as well. So again, throughout the module, throughout your time in Cardiff Met so far, you'll have been introduced to a load of theory. So try and make links here. So if the teacher's done something, think about, well, why do they do it? How does it link to the curriculum? And as well, what theory? Was it linked to engagement? Was it linked to potentially digital technology? Was it linked to cross-curricular learning? Was it linked to collaboration? Is it linked to communication? So try and bring in here, your analysis has curriculum and theory. That's where you're getting the bulk of your marks. Okay, the conclusion, reconsider the experience and answer the following questions. So what should or could I have done differently? What stopped me from doing this? What did I learn about myself during the experience? And what did I learn about my current knowledge and level of practice, strengths and weaknesses? Did the experience achieve any of my learning goals? So at the start, when you go in, it's really important that you write down how you're feeling and then at the end reflect on that. So again, I'm sure a lot of you will be transformed from when you go in and your expectations of what teachers do to the end of what teachers do. And again, I'm sure there'll be a bit of a difference. This part sums up what you learned, and it's really important for you to think of and reflect on because, again, in things like your PGC interview, you're going to be asked about placement, and this would be you're going to be able to summarise everything that you could tell somebody else. Give specific details. Avoid making general suggestions like, I didn't have any adequate knowledge. Give examples. Don't just say broad statements. Reflect on things and think about what worked, what didn't, and provide little examples would be good. The final thing we want you to do is an action plan, and this is really going to be helpful. And again, you could meet with Mel in Careers to maybe solidify this, to maybe help you with this. So following your placement experience, what are your career aspirations? You might have been on placement and think, I do not want to be a class teacher. You might go on placement and think, oh, I work with year 6. I don't think I fancy them. I think my next step is to look at the foundation phase. Again, so just think about, what you want to do and then think about what do you need to do to get there. Now, some of you might be leaving here and you might still not have a clue. But again, there are things you can put in place that can help you. Again, if you haven't seen Careers, go and see Careers. Go and see Steve in the Entrepreneurial Skills department. There are loads of things at the university we can support you with. It's at this stage You're in year 2. You need to make these things happen from now, maybe over the summer, because when year 3 comes along, that's going to go really quickly. So it's really important that you put a plan in place and then you start to action that plan. Okay, so think about what were the positives, what were the negatives, what are the priorities, what do you need to develop. Maybe, for example, you might have been quite shy and maybe your communication skills weren't so good. So maybe you need to develop those before you become a teacher. Maybe your math skills aren't so good. Maybe your English skills aren't so good and it's been highlighted on the placement. It's a really important time that you reflect on what you've done well. There'll be loads of strengths, but there'll also be some weaknesses, and think about how you can improve those. Okay, I haven't rushed through this. The presentation is going to be below, so you can look at this in more detail. I'm just highlighting this to you. So again, we're using the Gibbs' reflective cycle. The reason we're doing this is because teachers will use it when they evaluate lessons. It's going to be something you use on the PGCE if you do the PGCE. It's going to be something that's a really valuable skill even if you don't get into teaching it. Reflection can really help your performance in whatever you do. Maybe it's sport, maybe it's even in, friendship, relationships. All really, really important. So the idea of this is to challenge your own assumptions, explore new ideas and approaches. The main part is to promote self-improvement. So hopefully through this process, you should improve yourself. And really important here, don't feel that this part of the blog is something you don't need to link practice and theory. You have to. Really important that you do, especially to the curriculum and especially to things that we've done on the module. So things like collaboration, cross-curricular theory, communication, talk, those sort of things that those ideas we've introduced in the module, they need to be coming through here as well. And again, there's some ideas here. You can use research, you can use policy documents, you can use academic sources from MetSearch. For example, you might use references to show why something is done in a certain way, referring to a policy guidance, to explain what brought about certain feelings or reactions. You could quote a theory that maybe you've seen in another module, and that's absolutely fine. To explain what went badly, again, you could say that the policy guideline expectations were this, but this actually happened. To discuss what you could have done differently, again, use policy, use research, use the curriculum, use the what matters statements, the 4 purposes. There's loads of different things that you can use. And again, it could be to justify something, an idea, and just to support that idea. All right, placement expectations. We're nearly done. So your placement expectations are, for this, you have to complete a minimum of 24 hours. If you want to complete more, that's absolutely fine, but the minimum is 24 hours. It has to be done during the module. It has to be done during AOLE 2 Part 2. So it has to be done in a primary school setting. You can work for a recruitment agency, that's absolutely fine. If you are, please put the recruitment details and make sure you log every single school. In every school that you work in, you will need to identify a placement mentor and they will sign off your timesheets. So it says there you can gain it in more than one school. You can only accrue hours for the placement during the period this module starts and ends, so January to February. So that's really, really important. If you are ill for any significant period, speak to me and we can try and identify a time that you can do this. But really, really important, university policy states that you have to complete the placement hours during this module. Okay, so your role on placement. Please watch the guidance from the head teacher. So Steph Davis from Lantana Primary, she's recorded a short video of her expectations as a head teacher, what she would expect you guys to be doing on placement, even an observational placement. So although it's observational, by all means take notes, but that doesn't mean just sit back and do nothing. So you really need to take initiative. Your role, I would imagine, is more of a teaching assistant. So you need to support the teacher, the classroom teacher, within your time on placement. So help with reading groups. Use your initiative. Take the opportunity to speak to pupils, help pupils, sit with pupils. If they're struggling with work, go and help them. Speak to the class teacher at the start of the day, at break time, at lunchtime, and just say, where can I help now? Take the initiative. The more that you do, the more you can make a good impression. Education is such a small place. You'll be really surprised. If you make a really good impression there, you might be invited back for year 3, you might be invited back for PGC, and then that could become a job. So definitely think about your performance. This is almost like a window. Try before you buy. Make a good impression. So you need to record examples of cross-curricular creative approaches to learning. So do that by maybe taking some pictures of their books, taking some pictures of the activities that they're doing, maybe taking pictures of the planning. You have to speak to your teacher about taking pictures. Don't just start taking pictures. About that with phones, please don't use phones in the classroom. All the head teachers that we're working with, the schools we've got relationships with, have said they don't want students to have phones on them. Please leave them in the staff room or in your bags. Just don't need to be looking and scrolling through. We've had it in the past where students have been scrolling through during lessons, and it's just not good. You're role models for the children there. If you're not paying attention, they won't, and it's just going to create a problem. So please keep your phones locked away. Big one here is staying safe. Obviously, there are a number of cases of COVID in schools. You'll have done the risk assessment, which will help. But again, just make sure you follow the things like wearing a mask, social distancing where possible. Obviously, if you're working in the foundation phase, they can be all over you. But again, being sensible and just being cautious of it, washing your hands, those sort of things. All right, really important you establish a placement mentor. Now, your mentor is going to be busy. It's going to be your classroom teacher who are coming in, frantically trying to do their work. So try not to make too much work for them. All they need to do is that they're going to need to sign your timesheets. Most have been through this process. They'll have been where you are. They probably have quite a lot of empathy. Although they'll be busy, they probably have gone through what you've been through. So, ask them, can you have a look at the planning? Can you have a look at, what the week would look like, long-term planning, medium-term planning? Talk to them about, why are you doing this in this lesson? What have they done before? Try and develop a relationship. And the way you'll develop that relationship is by helping them. Take the initiative. If they need administrative stuff to be done, go and do it. If they need photocopying, go and do it. The more you help them, the more they will help you. Okay. Really important that you record all your placement mentors if you're working in agencies. Really important that you write down the schools as well. So without these timesheets, you're not going to be able to pass this placement. It's only 24 hours, so it's not that long as a minimum. You'll need to upload your timesheets, which are signed off, to turn it in. So you'll upload your blog on the Proforma and you'll upload your timesheets. There's 2 files there. Okay, you have to demonstrate a total of 24 hours and it has to be signed off by your mentor. If you're using the agency, they'll need to sign it off for you as well. All right. I've said these things are pretty self-explanatory, but bring a face mask, follow the school policy. A number of schools have got in touch to say that if students don't follow these things, they will potentially have to ask the placements to stop. I'm sure that will need to happen. All right, professionalism. You've got to think, again, like I've said, this is a window to you as individuals, as teachers. Be professional. Although it is an observational placement, dress correctly. Watch the video from Steph. She talks about what you could dress. She says avoid denim. Think formal attire. The first day, I would dress as smart as you can, and then you can always dress down from that, and you'll see what other teachers are doing. Ask your mentor. Say, what should I wear? Really important that you make a really good first impression. Turning up on time, I cannot stress that enough. If school starts at 9, don't just rock up a few minutes before 9. Get in before, if you can get in when the classroom teacher comes in, maybe at 8 or even before that, so you can help support, you're going to see a lot of different things that maybe you didn't even know went on before school. So turn up on time, and when the bell rings, don't be the first person pushing kids out the way to get out of the room. be conscientious. Only 24 hours you need to be working there. So maybe stay for the staff room meeting if that's available. If you can, ask the head teacher. Your whole point of this is to observe and see what's going on. So, maybe get involved in an after-school club. Maybe, see what happens afterwards. Go and have a look at the marking that the teacher's doing. All these things, it's an opportunity for you to have a window into what the world of primary school is like. As I've said, mobile devices away. You're a role model. A big thing I think a lot of our students forget, not all of you, but I'm sure some of you, smile. It's meant to be fun. Go out on break times. Go and play with the children. Go out at lunch times. Eat with the children. School dinners are amazing. We love school dinners. So, enjoy it. It should be a really, really fun experience. There's no pressure on you. You'll be able to develop some really fun relationships with the children during your time there, and they will love you. They love guests. You know what it was like when you were in school and you had students coming in. You'd be really excited. So, really, really enjoy it. Try and think about the learners in the class, build relationships with them, try and support them where you can. So your role is to observe and not judge the classroom teacher. I want to stress that. It's a really stressful time in education at the moment. I shouldn't be hearing, you making judgments about the class teacher. Again, they're providing the time for you to come in and see those lessons. I don't want to hear any negative comments about the teachers, because they're giving you time for you to come into the lessons. And last thing, again, as I said, dress appropriately. Safeguarding, again, it's your responsibility to ensure that children are safe when they're in school. Make sure if there are any safeguarding issues, anything, it could be that a child maybe confide something in you. Make sure you pass this on to the classroom teacher. Really, really important. Again, you're going to develop really different relationships as students. Some of you are a lot younger, and a lot of children will feel they can confide in you. If they say anything that you have worries, concerns about, just tell the classroom teacher. You have to make sure you do that. Social media as well. Don't just go snapping for your blog. As I've said, ask the classroom teacher. All right, if you are sick, really, really important. It's your responsibility to contact the school, the placement. If you are not going in for any reason, again, professionalism, you will be letting down the school if you don't go in. It's fine if you're sick. That's absolutely fine. That happens. But you have to ring them. Really, really important. School policy, if a staff member's sick, they'll have to ring in sick. So make sure you get the school number. Really, really, really important that you do that. You're making a good impression. If you just don't turn up, don't be surprised if you're not asked back. So really, really important. Education's a really small world. If we get sick, that's absolutely fine. But please tell your placement school if you are going to be sick, and you can make up the hours later on. Again, I've said about multimedia. Consult with your mentor, consult with your head if you can take pictures. I'm sure they will. I'm sure there'll be no problems, but don't just start to take pictures. Last thing is, obviously you've got your dissertation in year 3. A lot of you that I've spoken to may be unsure of what you want to do. So start to consider your dissertation for year 3 whilst you're on placement. Think about, is there anything you'd like to research? Is there something that maybe you've noticed that maybe children are lacking confidence in, or something you're interested in? Well, maybe this is the school that you do your research in. So maybe speak to the classroom teacher, speak to the head teacher in the staff room, speak to other teachers. This could be the set. This could be the setting for your dissertation. Again, your mentor would have gone through this. They'd have had to do a dissertation. So say to them, ask them what they did, and they may be able to give you some ideas. Maybe start to share some of your ideas of what you wanted to research, and they can help you as well. So just keep in mind on your dissertation. I know some of you have started to do that already, but this could be a really nice experience, a really nice space for you to start to think about how this will work practically. Biggest thing, enjoy it. It's going to be a really fun 24 hours. You can go on, you can work on as long as you want. You can walk into the summer. You can get paid for these placements as well. It should be an enjoyable experience. some references here. I am sure you will have a great time. Any questions, any problems, please get in touch with me or get in touch with the placements team. Make sure you watch and engage with the videos that are on the placement page. Thank you very much.